This is going to be a quick garden tour for Betty and Lila. So here we are at the bottom of my yard in front of the garden shed. So this is the flower bed that is mostly yellow this time of year, but as you can see it really attracts butterflies. Oh, I just had a hummingbird fly in front of me, and there goes a tiger swallowtail. Just landed on, oh, he's flown away now, he's way over there. I've had a couple of other tiger swallowtails that are brighter yellow here most of the afternoon, but that's an old one, kind of tattered looking. But this is just full of bees and other things. They just love this flower bed. The false sunflower, it fell down here through this last few weeks with some heavy rains, but that's okay because it drapes over the sides and looks pretty cool in my opinion. So we've got some white flat-topped asters in there in the middle, and the cup plants behind it are 10.5 feet tall. The green-headed coneflower here is just over 9 feet tall. And then over here we've got a lot of other stuff that's kind of overwhelmed right now, mostly done. So the bee balm and the wild bergamot back in there is finished. My ladder is over here next to my hazelnut shrubs because I need it to pick off the Japanese beetles that really love it there. And beside it is my purple flowering raspberries, but there's no blossoms left on it now. I made the mistake last fall of cleaning this flower bed up and forgot that the flowers on these raspberries bloom on second-year canes, so I had very few flowers this spring. Next year this should be quite lovely. Anyway, we'll pan around here. You can see that flower bed and the garden shed in the background. And this one here is kind of a prairie garden at this end. So this is little blue stem grass. And down in amongst it I have some wild lupins growing. They finished a long time ago. This plant here is new this year for me. This is flowering spurge, and people keep commenting that it's almost like a wild baby's breath. It's quite lovely, and it's been blooming for several weeks now. I'm really loving it. I have an elderberry shrub here that is a volunteer, but as you can see, it doesn't have very many berries on it. I think we just didn't have enough pollinators around this spring. But we have something pretty exciting on it, because the caterpillar that I sent pictures of while I went in for lunch, it turned itself into a cocoon, or a chrysalis technically. If I can get the camera to focus on it, there we go. So probably in another 10 days to 2 weeks that should hatch into a monarch butterfly. And this garden has some butterfly milkweed in the front here with the orange flowers, and some wild columbine that's finished quite a while ago, and a variety of other things. The ones out here are asters and goldenrods, and they will bloom in the next few weeks. They'll start to flower. And this is my Canada lily that was so glorious this year. I've got a couple of little baggies up on top there to collect seeds from it. It is 7.5 feet tall. The purple flower here is anise hyssop, which has a very strong anise, well, not a strong, but a nice anise fragrance to it, and it's usually covered in bumblebees as well. Over here, most of these are volunteers. They finished blooming. There's white avens, and there's enchanter's nightshade, and a few other things growing in here. I just let them do their thing. I have a volunteer blue lobelia that came up here this year, and also a volunteer redbud tree that came up here. So I'm going to let those stay where they are. Back in this corner, I have the shade garden. This is moisture soil, so there's lots back here that likes moist shade. Lots of blue lobelia, the cardinal flower, the red lobelia, so that is almost done. You can see the flowers are right out at the tip, but it's been glorious all year. In behind it is giant ironweed, again almost finished blooming too. And down in here, a new plant this year is called spikenard. So those berries will turn a nice burgundy color, and the birds love those. Not a lot in here other than a few spider webs and wood chips down below. And since I'm in bare feet, I'm not going to wander through there. But we've got jewelweed. We used to call it touch-me-not when we were kids, because when you touch the seed pods, they pop. And this one is yellow jewelweed as opposed to the orange ones that we're used to up our way. They have the glorious flower. If I can get it to focus on it, there we go. The big difference between this and the orange one, apparently, is that this one likes sandy soil and the orange one's like clay soil. Got some large leaf asters in front here. They've got kind of a bluey white flower to them, and they're a shade plant, hence the large leaves. And here's just a mix of a bunch of different things. All this is volunteer jewelweed, and on this side more volunteer jewelweed and more volunteer blue lobelia, and quite a few other volunteers in there as well. The one plant that you may not be familiar with, though, is this one that's kind of sprawled in the middle. This is called yellow-fruited horse gentian. And in the spring, it has little tiny purpley brown flowers that you hardly even notice. But this time of year, it is so cool because there's the fruit all up the stem at every leaf node. And that's a fairly rare plant in Ontario. It seems to really like it here, and I've got a couple of volunteers of those that have popped up. I'm hoping I can trade seeds this year for some other things. As we wander around through the back, we have some other things here. That one is a showy tick trefoil, and it'll have bright pink flowers soon. It's a member of the pea family, I believe. And back in the back there we have a plant called zigzag goldenrod, which has got lots of buds that are swelling, so in another week that should be nice bright yellow back in there. And over here, just lots of different things. Some more asters. This one is the purple stemmed aster that I sent you a picture of, and it's probably about 5 feet tall back in here. And in behind it, just some cedar trees. In the front we have obedient plant, but obedient plant in the shade falls over, which this has done. And I've never planted it here. This is all volunteer, so I may dig it out. I can see little patches of red. If you can see it down there. One there, and another one. If I can find it with the camera, I can see it with my eyes, but I'm not finding it. Anyway, there's another patch of it down here. There it is. And those are patches of jack-in-the-pulpit berries. Seeds. And over here we have a plant called white snakeroot, and it's mostly going to seed over there, but these ones here are just starting to come out in flower, and that's nicely filled in this back spot back here. In behind it, some more volunteer yellow flowers are more of the false sunflower, same one that fell over in the other garden. Ferns, lots of ferns. This is all ostrich ferns, the one you get the fiddleheads out of that you can eat. And in front there's a lady fern, and got, I think, 14 or 15 different species of ferns that I have throughout the gardens. On this side, we've got some more asters that'll be coming out soon. This is Short's aster, another rare one in Ontario. This one is New England aster, and the first of the flowers is coming out, and that's going to be nice when it finishes. Beside it, we have a nice patch of orange coneflower. This one is native just down in the very southwest of Ontario, so Windsor over to Ridgetown. And then behind it we have purple coneflower, and then we have this plant, which I'll show you another one of. This is called yellow giant hyssop, and these are self-seeded. That's why they're just first year, they're short. That one is the parent plant up there. It's probably about 7 feet tall at this point. And the flowers don't look like much. When you zoom in on it, you can see they just, a few come out at a time. But the bees just love it, and it is always covered in bees. And then we can move over to this garden over here. This is the garden that was just new last year. We've got a number of different plants here. We've got some bee balm, which is getting nearly done. Not a lot of petals left on it, but it was pretty glorious for several weeks. And then we have a plant called poke milkweed, which has beautiful snowy white flowers. It's a member of the milkweed family, but it likes shade. It grows mostly in forests. And I'm collecting some seeds because I have a native plant nursery that is willing to trade me very good plants for a bunch of seeds from this. And over here I've got three different kinds of goldenrods. I just got a message saying my phone is too hot and the quality of the video might be affected. So if it doesn't look great, that might be why. Anyway, I've got three different goldenrods. This one is showy goldenrod, so I'm pretty excited to see what it turns out like. This one is blue stem goldenrod. I have more up by the house on that one that is doing great. And over here I have rough stemmed goldenrod, and it just has these beautiful sprays of yellow flowers which are just starting to come out. And then over here, this plant is sky blue aster. So in another week or so, that will be beautiful blue flowers just covering it. And the other yellow giant hyssop, look way up, and I'll call Rusty. So this guy is almost 8 feet tall at this point, and I love the shape of it. I've got another ironweed here. This one is called Missouri ironweed. And the bees are just constantly hovering around that yellow hyssop. And over here, looking a little wilted in the sun, I've got a number of different flowers. Giant sunflower, tall coreopsis, and a plant called rosinweed, which is related to the cup plant that we saw in the first garden that was over 10 feet tall. These ones only get about 5 feet tall though. And then some shrubs back there, a nice oak tree, it's a white oak. And over here we have another oak tree. This one is called a dwarf chinkapin, and it'll only get about 10 feet tall when it's mature, and it's fairly slow growing. So that tree is about 10 years old now. And down in here is the bog garden, which is most of the stuff is finished blooming, and the others are just starting. So this is boneset in the front here. And the yellow is a bog goldenrod, and there's another one over here that was a volunteer from seeds from last year. And then down in front of me I have swamp milkweed, which is going to seed, and you can see its seed pods there. and you can see the seeds of an open pod. And over there next to the waterfalls, that one there is called an Ohio goldenrod. And up in here, just a few other things. And there's the waterfalls specifically for Betty. And this is the old bench that used to be at Mom and Dad's place at the other side of town. I had to repair it because the seat was pretty rotten. So I got some lumber and rebuilt it. But it seems to be a good spot here, just by the falls. And this is a grass called prairie dropseed. And I don't know if you remember Cousin It from the Addams Family, but I always think of that show when I see this plant. And this is where the new garden is going this fall. I'm going to be moving a lot of those plants down there and bringing them up to here, and then eventually turn that area into a wetland. And as we come up towards the house, I've got lots of other things growing in this bed. Got black-eyed Susans, I've got wild geraniums. Back in here is a plant I love, but some people hate, and this is called pokeweed. And they hate it because the birds poop the seeds out all over, and it grows everywhere, and it grows fast. But I like it because it has such a tropical look to it. And eventually, those green seeds will turn purple, and the stem that they're on will turn a really hot pink. And it looks gorgeous with the green leaves as a backdrop. So I always let one or two grow every year because I just love them. It fills in that spot nicely. Not much to show in the shade garden over there because it's a spring garden, but here we've got some blue lobelia and some cardinal flower, and we've got a plant called, yellow one called sneezeweed, and so I think the three colors go really nice together here at the top of the falls. And every one of these blue lobelia and cardinal flowers are volunteers where they're growing from the original ones that I planted many years ago, actually on the other side of this pond. And there's the pond at the top with the waterfalls heading down to the bog garden below. The deck and the circle garden and the laundry. So we'll go over here and see if we can capture the wasps. So there's a plant here that's faded now because it's almost done, but it is called dotted horse mint. And these wasps are called black digger wasp, and they just love this plant. They're always covered on all over it. And if you'll notice, I can capture an image of one here, a yellow dot on its back, and that yellow dot is simply pollen. Because every time the wasp sticks its head in a flower, I'm not having much luck capturing a picture of it, am I? They keep flying away when I get it. Nope, as soon as I think I've got it, it flies away. But anyway, when they stick their head in the flower dabs pollen on its back, and then it flies to the next flower. And so this is just constantly busy with the those wasps. And let's zoom out a bit. And we've got another plant here. This is Pearly Everlasting, which is a host plant for American lady butterflies, which every year it's covered in little caterpillars. And as we wander around, my old drinking fountain. The birds like as a bird bath. And over here we've got nodding wild onion and just a few other plants up here. Mostly wild strawberries. There is one that I really like down in here, and it's this one, which is called Pale Corydalis, and it's an annual, sometimes a biennial, and it starts flowering in June and it doesn't stop till the snow comes, and it keeps making seeds and making more babies. I love it. And this is some more butterfly milkweed. Anyway, that's probably a long enough tour for you. And I do have one more thing to say. I've got giant swallowtail butterflies flying around here quite often, and these are hop trees that I got this year. And lo and behold, that is a giant swallowtail caterpillar. And so I'm pretty excited that he's on there. They look like a bit of bird poop, and that's their defense. So anyway, and the new sidewalk and the gate here. I hope you enjoyed the tour, and it'd be nicer if I could give it in person, but this will have to do. Love you guys both.